and field fans, I thought I couldn't top last night. But my God, Kenneth MF Rooks. Absolutely insane. Almost wins the gold medal. Folks, if you're just joining us, if you had to work today, what day of the week is it in the States? It's Wednesday, I believe. I guess it's Wednesday here. But Kenneth Rooks said he told me 2 days ago he would run for the gold. He did. He had the lead off the last water jump, ends up with a silver medal. Absolutely amazing. Just after Quincy Hall had, it was unreal. He was in 5th place with 100 meters to go, and he runs one of the greatest last 100s of a 400-meter race in history and wins that. What was the time, John?
43:40.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. If you're just joining us, folks, Weldon's gone. We've sent him back to the States, and we won so much money betting on Cole Hocker. Our set here in Paris is finally finished. What do you think of it? Thumbs up to Feldspar. We love you, Feldspar. Feldsparsport.com. Look, you've seen these crazy times in all these races. It's super shoes. Imagine what's going to happen in the 2028 Olympics when there's a super track. Feldsparsport.com. Feldspar is going to revolutionize the track of the 21st century. But, you know, John, we were going to the track tonight, and I'm kind of thinking, you know, it's tough. You know, we're not complaining. We're at the Olympics. We're pretty excited, but we've been working 4 or 5 a.m., folks, providing you content. Thank you, Supporters Club members, for making it possible. Join the Supporters Club today. Let'sRun.com/subscribe. But it's like, okay, we've got the 400 final. That will be interesting. Matthew Hudson-Smith of Great Britain been winning a lot of medals. Can he win the gold? Could Quincy Hall do it? Kirani James, Fountain of Youth. And you know, that was going to be good. Steeple, we're like El Bakkali. He's been injured, but he looked pretty good in semis. So does he just wreck Girma yet again? Well, we weren't considering Kenneth Rooks going for gold, and he almost stole it. It honestly, I walked up to Ed Eyestone in the mix zone after this race was over. By the way, Ed, we love you. He's a huge Let's Run guy because, John, he's like 30 yards away in the back of the mix zone. My coaches don't normally go in there. He's like, hey, what are the odds? What would you say the odds were? I thought he was like just talking about how crazy it was that Rooks, because I started a message board thread. I clicked on a photo before the race because I almost bet Kenneth Rooks to medal. It's like, what was it, 31-1, I think, on Let's Run?
33-1.
33-1. But apparently Ed was referring to my preview article where I gave Kenneth Rooks a
1% or less chance to medal. Now, to be fair, you listed 13 athletes at 1% or less, and he was the tops amongst them. So I guess he's right at 1%.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is a 1 in 100 performance. The more we look at it, he just ran 8:06. He got the Olympic silver. The dude was leading the Olympic final off the final water jump. Just an absolutely incredible run, Kenneth Rooks. This is what Evan Jager did in 2016. He just matched the accomplishment. Utterly crazy. Lamecha Girma, the world record holder, clattered to the ground in one of the more violent barrier collisions you're ever going to see in a steeple. I hope he's doing okay. El Bakkali repeats, not just repeats as Olympic champion, he four-peats as global champion. So
not 1, not 2, not 3.
Dude's a boss. I mean, he just gets it done year after year.
Let's just pause for 1 second and take a look at this photo. That's Kenneth Rooks heading into the final water jump of an Olympic final with the lead. He was seated 15 out of 16. I swear to God, I'm getting chill. John, can you see the hair like going up on my arm right now? He had the lead. Oh my God. It's just a reason. I walked up to Ed after the race and I said, Ed, that's the favorite race I've ever watched in my entire life. He said, well, last night was pretty special with Cole. I was like, yeah, it was. But, going in, I was like, well, an Ingebrigtsen, whatever. Like, I enjoyed, like, getting the behind-the-scenes story here when, Rooks. It also bothered me that we didn't realize, like, his PB was what? 8.
It was 8:15 from earlier this year.
John had said it best on a podcast. He's not an 8:15 guy. And Ed told me, I'm like, Ed, what did you think the odds were? He's like, well, he wasn't an 8:15 guy. He was an 8:05 guy. He apparently was supposed to go to a Diamond League meet, probably Paris, I guess, a month ago. But he had some sort of injury and couldn't really I'll have to put it in the recap. It was like unable to work out, was barely like running for just a couple days. But 8:05 guy, but still, there's a lot of talent on this race. You're thinking two of the medals are locks for Girma and El Bakkali. But anyways, Rooks is like, I want to run free. But it was interesting when I talked to him yesterday, and we're not allowed here in Paris to put up the YouTube video. So sometimes with print, you miss the context. And Ed's like, yeah, I saw you put up. I'm going to run for gold. But I tried to put some nuance. He didn't say it like, I'm only going for gold. Like he even said, like in the interview, like if I didn't make it out of the prelim, I just wanted to make sure that I gave my full effort. And he's like, I'm going to run for gold, but he said it like in a way that I'm going to have my best showing possible. And so there we go.
And
people.
he's telling me it's this is amazing. I've got my virtual set going. No, it looks awkward. We look tiny. You could fry an egg on my head with the way the camera looks at it right now. It's just like, this is, I don't know. It's sort of a vanity project. You claim the podcast is a vanity project anyway, but I don't know. I just feel like that we're kind of two grown men playing make believe right now, and we just go back to the portraits that were hanging on the wall in between us while Weldon was here, because I think this is all a little bit silly at the moment.
Folks, it's amazing. This is why I'm the heart and soul of LetsRun.com. I'm over the age of 39. John is not. And yet I'm young. I want to try new things. I'm extremely excited. I had the Kenneth Rooks picture up. If you listen, but look, the diehards are Supporters Club members. They're getting this as a podcast. Most of our audience is on the podcast. I have a virtual set. It looks like I'm like Bob Costas right now. And I mistakenly left up the picture of Kenneth Rooks for a little bit too long. And Angry John is upset with me. So,
well, Weldon also wants you to move the feldspar ad below the desk and zoom in a little closer so you can see our beautiful faces. But anyway, the steeplechase, we'll talk. I just want to quickly remind people, we saw one of the great 400-meter races of all time tonight, Quincy Hall. I guess we did mention that in the intro, but we will be discussing that in a little bit more depth after the steeplechase.
And more than that, it's going to be a great show. It was a great day of track and field. We had chaos is the best word to use for the men's 5,000 heats. Quite a number of people we expected in the final, mainly three of the best North Americans not in it. Luis Grijalvo, who's been fourth each of the last two global championships, he's out. Abdelhamid Noor, American medal hopeful, he's out. And Mohamed, this is really pissing me off because I thought he looked better than ever in that 10,000. He's out. Yet they've let like almost everybody else who ran the prelims into the final because they all fell.
We are running a 22-person final in the men's 5,000 meters. That's just going to be a total monstrosity. And unless the pace gets going, I guarantee you we're going to have at least one more fall, because these heats this morning were like 21 and 19 people. Now we're going to have 22 guys. If the pace is dawdling and they're all going to be fighting for position,
look, John,
it's a disaster waiting to happen.
But John, we've let 22 in. We might as well let everyone in. Just everyone that ran today. It's like a rapid choice. That's what the Olympics are about. Just everybody coming together.
Honestly, Stuart McSwain filed an appeal that was granted. If they're letting him into the final, they might as well let everyone in who appealed. Because I watched that. There is no way in hell he should be running in this final. Yes, he was impacted by the fall, but he was in 13th place at the time and was cooked at that point. It's just frankly absurd. And if you're not going to advance Mohamed and Abdelhamid Noor, we'll get into that discussion later. But the idea that McSwain is in this final after what happened this morning, I just think is ridiculous.
I'm gonna give a shout out to Connor Simpleton on the YouTube comments. Galt, stop shitting on the only entrepreneurial thing Rojo has done in 10 years. Only entrepreneurial thing, folks. If you don't have one of the Let'sRun.com t-shirts, they're amazing. Get yours today. Shop.letsrun.com.
All right. So Steeplechase. We're talking about El Bakkali. I mean, El Bakkali just deserves a ton of respect for delivering in the championships. I don't know what the hell he was doing all year. I know he had that injury at the start of the year, and he raced with the knee brace on in Marrakech, or the knee tape on in Marrakech, and then he doesn't race again for the entire year. So he had one, aside from like one cross country race in January, he had one race all year and comes out and wins the Olympics. I wish he spoke English so he could kind of learn what the hell's been happening with the guy. But he's always brings it to the championships. We kind of knew he was going to be a factor after the semis. But what Rooks did reminded me of what Courtney Frerichs did in Tokyo 2 years ago. It's just, I'm freaking going for this. And I'm going to try to take my bid to win. And if it comes up short, so be it. But like, this is my moment. And he didn't just take the lead shortly after the bell. He got a gap on the back straight. You could kind of tell he was with El Bakkali and Girma with about a lap to go. And then Rooks goes to the front. And El Bakkali's probably, if I had to think what he's thinking at that point, he's like, okay, the American guy took the lead. I don't need to worry about it. And then suddenly he gets this gap on the back straight. He's like, shoot, I better counter that move. That's the gold medal. So him and Girma start accelerating to a tremendous degree down that back straight. And El Bakkali was able to clear the barrier, but Girma, I think, just took it too fast and mistimed his jump, clatters his trail leg on the barrier, and just goes down, hits the track hard. There's a violent contact between himself and the barrier. And, I hope he ended up okay. I didn't actually get to see what happened to him at the end, but El Bakkali's still there. And I'm like, all right, this is where he catches Rooks. And he's out on the shoulder. Rooks stepped badly going into the final water jump, but he still had the lead off the final water jump. I thought at that point, I'm like, all right, El Bakkali's going to go by him. No, Rooks has still got the lead. Finally, El Bakkali passes right before the final barrier. And you would think at that point, the three medalists, those two and Abraham Kibawat, who was the bronze medalist last year, they're clear of the field. The medals are set. It's only the order. It looks like El Bakkali is going to get the gold. And, you might think, all right, Rooks, bold effort, and he's just going to get run down by a couple of guys. No, he doesn't give up fighting. He battles all the way to the finish line, and he didn't quite get El Bakkali, but he did hold off Kibawat for the silver. So it's kind of stunning to me, Robert, because when Evan Jager won the silver in 2016 in Rio, we viewed that as the culmination of this 4-year project. This was one of America's best young talents who had taken up the steeplechase, which was just a wasteland of an event for Americans for decades. And he comes in, and finally, we see him. He's one of the best in the world in 13, 14, 15. He goes into Worlds as a big medal threat, doesn't get it done, but we know he's capable. And then 16, he puts it all together. Kenneth Rooks, a little over a year ago, people barely knew this guy's name. He shows up, he rocks NCAAs, he wins NCAAs for BYU, then he wins USA's while falling, and that should have maybe clued us in, hey, this guy is like a lot better than every other American if he can win while falling. This year, he goes up, wins USA's again, and now he's an 8:06 guy and an Olympic medalist, and could probably run faster than that because this was not an evenly paced race. So it's just kind of stunning. He's got to the same point that Evan Jager took 4 years to get. He got it there in his second year as a pro. Though I guess he might probably is around similar age, given Jager went pro very early, and Rooks is BYU guy.
It's amazing. By the way, if you're on the show now live, or if you're a Supporters Club member, give yourself a thumbs up. You're one of the best track and field fans in the world, and there aren't that many of you. I mean, by the way, France, it's been an amazing Olympics. These seats are packed. My two college roommates both paid $700 each, and that's like the face value to go to the meet last night. So it's packed and expensive somehow. So it's an amazing thing. But
actually, I should say Jager was 27 when he got his silver medal in Rio. Rooks is only 24. So beat him to the punch by 3 years.
But I was talking to Ed, and Ed is a fan of Let's Run. He was giving me a hard time, and much deserved. Like, I thought we would get 2 medals. This is an amazing meet. We should have done this in the intro. We've already got The USA track and field team is rocking this meet. John was just telling me the stat. We've medaled in every single track final that's been held, including all of the distances. Well, if you don't have everyone, including all of the distances, that's 4 men's medals, right?
I mean,
2 in the
Robert, I'm just
one in the steeple. And what's the other one? And
2 in the
10K.
15, 1 in the 10K, 1 in the steeple. And if you want to,
we did not medal in the women's 5,000.
I said men's
okay.
distance finals. If you want to make if you want an ultra hot take, USA best men's distance running country in the world right now. I mean, based on this small sample size, Robert, based on those 3 events, no other country has medals in all 3 events.
Well, we're gonna get into that.
We'll wait till the marathon rolls around, but I'm looking at the rest of the events on the schedule. I think they have a real shot at a medal, possibly a gold medal with Bryce Hopple in the 800.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm Debbie Downer. I should probably reevaluate.
They got a real great shot at a medal in the 5K with Grant Fisher. And
no.
Yes, they do.
Gold?
No, they got a real great shot at a medal.
Oh, medal.
In the 5K.
Okay.
And the marathon, I wouldn't call it a good shot, but who the hell knows what happens going to happen on that course? Like anything could happen. And I know Connor Mance is as tough as they come. So
he's tough, but they've been banged up. They're not medaling the marathon. Look,
Olympic marathon. I'm going to say what I said with Molly Seidel 3 years ago. Olympic marathon, freaking crazy things happen, man.
John expressed some concern earlier for what's going to happen in the men's 5,000 meter final. We're going to come back to that race, but John, you've got nothing to be concerned. As Taki Mensah says, Ethiopia is doing really poor in this Olympics. They are, and tonight made me really think that the one advantage the Americans have is a vast advantage of coaching for most of these people. Like Ethiopia, like in that men's 5,000, it's not going to be too crowded because their runners will run themselves out of contention by setting the pace. They did it in the 10,000 and didn't get any medals. They did it tonight in the steeple and didn't get any medals. And they'll probably do it in the 5,000 and not get any medals. And people are like, oh, you're stupid just sitting back. But I think you saw tonight with Kenneth Rooks, you don't want to do the work. And this was a masterclass by Ed Eyestone. So when I go up to him in the mixed zone, we had a 9 or 10 minute talk. We talked about everything from Rooks to Kira D'Amato, etc. I wish I could put it up on YouTube. But I was like, that was my favorite race I've ever watched in my life because the guy went for gold, said he's going to go for gold, and he did, and he almost pulled it off. It was amazing. But I said, what was the plan? He said, well, I told him nothing faster than, I can't remember, it was 64 or 65. And the beginning of this race was quite fast, or, fairly fast. 240, but there's no barrier for the first bit. So 240 is 8 flat pace. And I remember when I saw that, the Ethiopians were alternating leads. The Ethiopia is not named Lamecha Girma. By the way, Ethiopia, how poorly are they managed? They had a guy who won the Paris Diamond League 1 month ago, 802, world number 2. He's not on the team because they don't have a trials. They need to have I could revolutionize Ethiopian distance running. You just have a trials on a set date. You see it in the women's 1500. We haven't even mentioned that. We had the dumbest run I've ever seen in my life today. Burke Hylam, 353 girl. She went out in 58 and 202 in the repechage round. I was debating whether it was the fastest gulag round. Thank you, Matthew Sintrowitz. In the history of the world, we have found one split that's at least faster than this. So she had one of the top 5 fastest splits 800 in the world ever, women's 1500, and it was in the repechage round because she didn't roll in the first round. But it's stupid. But the beginning was, 240, and the guys were kind of single file. And I remember thinking, well, this is really good because it's not crazy fast. It's not like 235, which you often see. And Rooks was way in the back, but he was, following Ed's plan. Now, Ed admitted to me, he's like, oh, man, I think I messed up. He's too far back. But it really slowed down the second kilometer. It was basically a 250 for the leaders, 249 something. So that's 830 pace. But I mean, your average pace between the two is 8 flat, 830. You're running 815 pace. And it kept going pretty slow. It didn't really even pick up. 800 meters to go. Everybody's there. Even at the bell, I think everybody but 2 people in the field were within 2 seconds of the lead. It was like a 60. They were running I have it on my phone. They were running, lap to lap, 67s. I had 66.99 on the third to last lap. Then they run a 64. And that's when Rooks made his move. Like he was in the way back when it was 240. Then he moved to kind of the middle of the field, and then heading into the around 800, John, he went kind of wide, was thinking about going up, but the pace picked up a little bit, so he kind of stayed around 8
it
or
was
9.
it was kind of a gradual move and then a sudden move when he gets to the front with the first barrier of the last lap. But
and then,
I think what it shows you, Robert, is you don't need to waste energy making moves. As long if the pack's still together, it's okay to sort of hang at the back like that and stay smooth.
So
and you get some clean runs to the barrier because you're not in quite as much traffic. And then when you need to put yourself in position, start working yourself into position before the bell, so then you can actually make your big move at the bell or on the last lap. So I thought he managed it very, very well.
He did, and there was a very specific game plan. Do not run faster than whatever the 64, 65. Do not. And Rooks is like, I was really focused. Oh, and Ed had already told me this. He's like, he's an exceptional technical hurdler. He's like, I was really focused on just getting over the barriers as efficiently as possible and saving energy. Think about this. The Ethiopians are up front wasting energy in the 10K, in the mid 3K steeple. He's saving energy, trying to be efficient so that I would have something left to kick. And then he started to kick. And he moved up. I haven't quite seen the replay. The official stats say the 400 he was still in fourth, but he was basically getting the lead right at 400 to go, or 1 lap to go. And I was like, dude, what was that like? Do you get a moment to contemplate, like, I'm in the lead of the Olympics, I could win a gold medal? He's like, yes, I did. He's like, for 100 meters, I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm in the lead of the Olympics and I might win it. So, because he got a slight gap on the back end, and I see Rooks and I was so excited. I was like, John, look at Rooks.
I was saying the same thing. I was like, holy crap, it's Kenneth Rooks, man.
Because at 800 to go, around 900 to go, you're like, Rooks is trying to move up, but he didn't get up there. And then at the bell, I was like, oh my God. And then I immediately said, okay, where's El Bakkali? We thought maybe he's banged up, but where's Girma? He was sick when he was in China early this year, but I would expect him to be doing well. And I'm like, where's Girma? And they were just pretty far back, like 7th or 9th at the bell. And on the back stretch, about 250 meters to go, I see that Girma was clearly following El Bakkali. He was trying to outkick the kicker. And you can say, oh, it's stupid, but it's easy to say in hindsight, oh, like, Jakob shouldn't have led. Girma shouldn't try to do this. But when you lose, like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And I'd heard from some people who know that he was really working on his speed earlier in the year to work on the kick. And that's maybe he thought El Bakkali was vulnerable. Unless you're going to push it. Like with the other 2 Ethiopians alternating the lead, John, the other option would be try to push it down to sub 8. Maybe he should have done that. But the other option, I think, okay, don't do any effort and just see where this guy is. I'm going to outkick him. And 250 to go, I'm like, oh, man, I think one of them is going to win it because they were getting kind of close to Rooks. But then when the fall happened and John yells it out, Girma, I was like, okay, I think he's got a medal. And then, he didn't give up. Like he had to settle the steps before that last water jump, but he still had the lead. And then his last barrier was better than El Bakkali's, but El Bakkali still had something in reserve and got the win. Ed Eyestone said, yeah, I think if the last barrier, if the water jump, he said it wasn't a good water jump for him. Maybe he could have won the gold. But what did Ed say he was most proud of? I'm going to ask you listening live, what do you think Ed said he was most proud of? John's kind of hinted at it. Kenneth said the same thing. I was very proud I did this. Anyone got a shot of what we're talking about? He was most proud of the fact that he's like, yeah, he just didn't settle for the bronze. He rallied for the silver all the way to the line because the Kenyan who got the bronze last year was ahead of him briefly for a moment. Just amazing, inspiring race. So thank you, Kenneth Rooks.
Yeah, one of the gutsiest, I think I said this after Courtney Frerichs got the silver in Tokyo. I said that was one of the gutsiest runs ever by an American in a global final. And I think this belongs right up there with them.
I think Al from Virginia, give a shout out to Al. Absent from gold, this was a modern Billy Mills performance. I agree. It was absolutely unreal. And, we have a chat here, and Our web guy, Eric Westland, shout out to Eric. He texted me right when this race ended. He said, respect to Hocker, but holy shit, that was more exciting. Legend. Legit. I'm shaking still. The balls on this guy. He says, objectively, the Hocker race was more impressive, but excitement-wise, I'm sorry, that last lap was more excited than I've ever been watching ever. The balls. It's like Bob Kennedy actually held on. I agree. I felt the same way. I've never. Oh, I'm chewing up saying it now. The thrill, the unexpectedness of it, the fall, God, it was unreal. If you're not sure, if you're younger than the age of 39, you may not know what he's referring to. Bob Kennedy. I was in the stands, and what a moron I was at the time. Walden too. We were in the stands for the men's 5,000 final. Haile Gebrselassie won the 10. He didn't double back for the 5, so we thought the 5 was actually kind of open. Bob Kennedy, who had run 12:58 back when that was good, he took the lead with less than 2 laps to go, and the crowd went nuts at home in Atlanta. I don't know where he ended up, John, but it was.
I think he was sixth, right?
It was thrilling when he did it, because back then this was the nadir of American distance running, and we had one hope.
Yeah,
and he did it. It was amazing. But Weldon, funny story. Back then, there was no StubHub, no internet. Well, there was kind of an internet, but no Let'sRun.com, no real internet. And we were trying to find tickets, and there was someone outside the stands like, yeah, we got some tickets. This is like 2 days before the final. And they're like, oh, they're really good seats, though. The lower bowl. It's like $50. And I'm like, oh, we can't afford that. It was Bob Kennedy's dad and his wife. We could have sat right next to him, and instead we wanted to save $20 and sit in the upper deck or wherever we sat. I'm like, ridiculous.
Okay. I wasn't quite as excited as you. I thought it was amazing. It's always a thrill when you've got someone unexpected leading that and just absolutely going balls to the wall. Of the races I've seen in Paris, I think the 1500 is still the one that's going to stick with me the most, but a lot of races are going to stick with me because this has been an amazing meet. And I want to talk about the US distance performance as a whole. Lost 2 world championships. Combined American distance medals on the men's side. Big fat 0. And really not even that close, right? We had Grant Fisher was close in 2022. And Naguse was 5th last year, but really wasn't factoring, that home straight battle. Other than that, I don't think there's really been any American men that have been close. And yet somehow the Olympic years, they raised their game. Like the people saying, oh, this is the best U.S. distance track performance ever. I'm like, well, go back 8 years. They got 5 medals on the men's side. Or it was 5, right? We had Clayton Murphy, Matthew Centuritz, Paul Chelimo, Evan Jager, Galen Rupp. So still haven't matched that yet. That was an amazing run. And they won the 1500 both years. That was the only gold. Steeple both years. But this is crazy. And I don't know how to explain it because I guess Grant Fisher is healthy this year, which he wasn't last year. Kenneth Rooks is 1 year better. Cole Hocker is healthy. Naguse is about the same. I guess he moved up 2 places. I guess I laid out the reasons. Is there any other difference between the last 2 years and this year? I feel like it's just one stud has just emerged, Rooks, and the other studs who you think will be contending for medals are at peak fitness and haven't had any injury issues. Is that the difference, Robert, or am I missing something?
It's hard to explain. There was a message board post that said, let's give the MVP to the Kenyan drug testers. But I don't know. But the more I think about this meet, the more I'm just crediting the coaching. I feel like back in the day, and people are going to say this is ridiculous, but Weldon Johnson couldn't break 30 minutes for 10,000 meters in college, 30:06. 30:13 as a sophomore in college, 30:06 as a 5th-year senior. You think he should quit. But he got good coaching. He did the high-altitude training, the low-altitude training, Flagstaff. Nobody was doing that 25 years ago. John Kellogg knew about it. No one else did. Now everybody in America knows about it. Everyone's doing it, and they've got good coaches, and they're rocking it. And I'm not saying that the coaching overseas is terrible, but you actually look at some of what these African runners do when they get Western coaching. Like Safan Hassan dominates. I know Negus was born in America, but his parents are Ethiopians. Ethiopia is terrible at the men's 1500. They obviously have the genetics to rock the event. And I actually think the coaching might be the worst in Ethiopia of anywhere because the language barrier. Everyone's like, oh, all the information is out there. It's not out there in MRI. It's hard if you're Ethiopian to really understand English and speak English. It's like it's not in Kenya where they grew up with a lot of English, John. So I think that the knowledge there, the gap, I think it's really hurting Ethiopia at the coaching ranks. Like the shit that they're doing in this meet.
I'm not sure if it's just the coaching. The federation has come under criticism for some of their selection decisions, but also just the inconsistency with how they pick the teams. A lot of times the World Championship years, they do it off of times, but then sometimes they'll hold trials in certain events like they did this year. There's not always a lot of communication between the federation and the athletes of being exactly clear what is needed to make the team. And also what happens is a lot of these athletes will go out and start killing themselves in the circuit and running like 3:53 in April because they need to lock in a fast time to make sure they're on the team. And then by the time the championships come around a few months later, they're out of gas. That doesn't seem to me to be the smartest way to pick your best team, whereas the U.S. holds their trials essentially as late as they can. They held it the last week of the qualifying window for the Olympics, and all their best athletes are still their best athletes now. So, yeah, I guess that would be my take on the Ethiopia thing. The other thing, the NCAA itself is having an amazing meet. We had a stat, one of our posters earlier said 5 of the 9 distance medals so far have gone to NCAA athletes or athletes who came through the NCAA system, including a podium sweep in the 1500. Rooks was NCAA. Also in the final tonight, 5th placer, Ahmed Jaziri of Tunisia, who also ran a huge PB, 8:08. He was the NCAA champion in 2022, the year before Kenneth Rooks. So obviously the NCAA is a great talent development system, but it does also make me wonder with the way the sport is being restructured and with schools having to start paying athletes and all this sort of stuff, like, is this development pipeline for not just the USA, but the world, is it going to change? Is it going to go away in the next few years? Because there's no better development system for track and field athletes in the entire world.
I agree with that. And 10 years ago, that was a controversial statement to make. People thought they were being burned out. I think that there's a lot of angst and worry amongst my former college coaching colleagues about what's going to happen. If anything, I think the changes might help the U.S., but I don't think that the top athletes, the athletes at the Olympics, have anything to worry about. There's always going to be some, even if there's only 20 powerhouse programs, the SEC schools and et cetera, they're going to still have their teams and they might have 40 scholarships each. It might be boring for us as fans if they're all, there's no national champion coming in the triple jump from Cornell anymore. But the top talent, it's not that hard to identify, in this day and age. So, but
it's a filtration system because so many schools can offer scholarships that the best athletes will rise to the top. But I don't know, is all that talent definitely going to be found? Like Melissa Jefferson was at Coastal Carolina. Ahmed Jaziri was at Eastern Kentucky. Now, I guess if you're a steeplechaser, you're more inclined to go to Eastern Kentucky because they have a proud history in that event. But it's not like, every single athlete is from some massive super powerhouse. Like Josh Coe is New Mexico. They obviously have good distance history, but they're not some Power 5 monster in that athletic department.
But it'll be interesting. Let's talk about Josh Kerr actually recently, because I was talking to a top coach in the Power 5, and somehow we were talking about Josh Kerr, and I said, "Hey, man, did you know about him in college? In high school?" He's like, "Yeah, he was like a 3:56 1500-meter runner." And I was over in Scotland. I wanted to go meet him, and I just was trying to get over to see him. And he was kind of a chunky guy, and his brother's like a professional rugby player or something like that. And he's like, "Hey, man, before you even come, like, do you have a full ride?" He's like, "No, I've only got 30%. Like, you're a 4:14 miler. Like, I can't offer." He's like, "No, I've got a full ride in New Mexico. I'm sorry." And then he said that fast forward like 5 months when Josh won the European under 18 title or under 20 title, whatever it was. He's like, oh, damn. And he texted Joe Franklin to Mexico. You got me. But that story now would be different because now these Power 5 schools can offer 40 scholarships. And this coach in particular is offering them to Scotland. He's like, if you just look at these people from Scotland, Laura Muir, Jake Whiteman, he's like,
Neil Gourley.
You know, it's kind of like when I was recruiting, I always said, I'm not recruiting times, I'm recruiting talent. So now everyone's going to Arcadia. Back then they weren't. So if you had a 920 in California, that might be a 935 or 940 in Maine. So, you know, you've got to think about this sort of in a slightly different way. But yeah, it's an interesting point. But we got to give a shout out to Rooks, one of the greatest thrills if you're an American distance runner to watch that race. El Bakkali does it again. He's been hurt. This was his second steeple of the year. He's really pretty much so far unbeatable in these things. And it's kind of interesting. He's actually kind of the opposite. Well, he doesn't really get beat that often in the Diamond League circuit, but not the opposite of Ingebrigtsen in the 1500, but he doesn't have the world record. He can't. Like, do you think Girma can beat him in a rapid race? What's their head-to-head record, John? I'd love to see that.
Girma never beats him, pretty much.
Even rapid races.
I think they had that epic race in Rabat a couple of years ago where they both went sub-8, and I was like, oh, great, they're going to race each other more often. And then they stopped racing each other outside of the championships. But
anyways, and then I do feel bad for Girma. Like, he's an exceptional runner. Let's go through Lamecha Girma's PRs. He's the Ethiopian national record holder at the 1500. He ran that sick. Wasn't in the flat 3000 indoors world record, right?
World indoor record holder in the 3K. World indoor silver in the 3K in 2022. Ethiopian record holder in the 1500. World record holder in the steeplechase. 4-time silver medalist in the steeplechase. He was 0.01 away in his first silver medal in 2019. That's the closest he's come since. And this is the first time he doesn't land on the podium. But yeah, an exceptional runner who just happens to be up. I think he's more like the Jakob of this event. He's a great runner. He can push himself to super fast times across a number of distances. But there are other people there's one guy in this event who has a better kick than him and is basically just as fit most of the time.
But the big difference is Jakob basically started his career with a gold medal in the Olympics.
Right.
So game
over.
Well,
I mean, if he beats Kipruto by he was 0.01 behind in Doha, if he won that, it would be exactly the same.
So
I got their head-to-head record. El Bakkali El Bakkali in the steeple is 9-1. The only time he lost to Girma was the 2019 World Championships when El Bakkali got the bronze and Girma the silver. Other than that, Girma has always beaten him over barriers, though he did beat him in the flat 3K in Monaco last year. Sorry, in Doha last year.
But by the way, and we got to give a shout out to our betting expert, Justin. I'm worried he's losing a lot of money, John, because my odds aren't coming true. But, Ed gave me a hard time for saying 1% for Rooks. But right before this race started, I said, what are the odds of this race? And I looked it up. Rooks is still 33-1 to medal. So that's 3%. And our gambling guys, I don't mess with anything. Less than 3% is hard to analyze. 1% to 3% is 3 times as likely. It's very hard to figure out if you should bet on that or not. But just an amazing run. But it came after just, I think, 13 minutes after the men's 400 final. And what an unreal race. Some runners are so smooth and beautiful. Like Centrowitz, when he said, when I'm all out, people don't think I'm going all out because it doesn't look like no matter how hard he's trying, it just looks smooth. And then some like Quincy Hall, the video of this race should be shown to every U.S. track and field runner for the rest of their lives. If you're an American and we're not inspired by Quincy Hall and Kenneth Rooks tonight, you need to move to another country and give up your citizenship right now. I know some people have already threatened that, and depending on how the election goes, just do it now because this was inspiring. This was the best of America had to offer. But we're thinking Quincy Hall. There was like 4 guys that went 43.
5 guys.
In the semi.
No, in the semi. Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, we got Quincy Hall, U.S. champ. We've got Matthew Hudson-Smith. He's won a lot of medals, but never the gold. We got Kirani James, who won the gold, 12 years ago? He looked great. And he's got some sort of weird, medical thing going on. So maybe he's just found like the perfect thing. And then there was the Zimbabwe guy, and I don't know who that was, the 4. And there was a 5th, I guess, in the final. And, I was looking at it's where we had Hudson-Smith and Quincy Hall, kind of similar odds heading in. John had them dead even, I think. I had
there were two things I'm proud of when it came to setting those odds, because there were a couple events where I'm like, oh man, I think I didn't have this one on. The men's 100 and the men's 400, I had them dead on because I had Thompson and Lyles with the same odds in the 100, and they were both, it's 5,000s apart. And this one, Quincy Hall, 43.40, Matthew Hudson-Smith, 43.44. They were essentially right there. But it wasn't like, Hudson-Smith and Richards, it was funny. Quincy Hall was asked after the race, were you worried at all? Why were you behind? And Hudson-Smith was just like, I'll take this. And he's just like, I ran the shit out of that first 200, essentially, with his remarks. And he did. He ran 20.62. And he wasn't even in the lead at 200. Jareem Richards went out even harder, 20.46. And those two were the guys who were leading off the final ton. Hall was 5 meters back. It had to be at least 4 meters, probably 5, with 100 to go. And in a 400, you do not see those sort of gaps overcome. But Robert will attest to this. He's like, oh, it's over, right? I'm like, Quincy Hall's got a kick, man. That dude can move at the end of races. And it took him a little bit to get going, but I think even as late as 60 meters, he was still in 4th. But when he opened up, man, he just mowed down the other guys. And then Hudson-Smith, he timed it perfectly and got him right at the line. 2 of the fastest times ever. 43.40 puts you number 4 on the all-time list. And the only men who've gone faster, Wade Van Niekerk, Michael Johnson, Butch Reynolds. 43.44 puts you number 5 on the all-time list and is the fastest non-winning time in history. So Hudson-Smith he did look at the scoreboard at the end and drop the F-bomb in frustration, but then he went over to congratulate Quincy Hall. Robert's got me. I'm blaming Robert for that one. And he just said, I ran an amazing race. Like I said all year, if someone was going to have to beat me, they're going to come and take it from me. And that's what he did. He ran 43.40. It's almost impossible to beat that in the 400. Especially, I'm amazed they ran this fast given the semis were yesterday. Like sometimes you'll see these 400s, they'll go really hard in the semis and won't be able to reproduce it in the final. But people are getting excited saying, oh, the 400's back. The 400's back. I'm like, let's see how they do in the final. Now it's official. The 400 is back because the last couple of years, this event was garbage. Winning time, 44.29 at the Worlds in 2022 in Eugene, 44.22 last year. Those are the first global finals with a winning time above 44 seconds since Kirani James back in 2011. It was in the doldrums. And Quincy Hall's decision to move from the 400 hurdles to the 400 looks like a genius now because he got out of that event when it was getting really hard. And now he's in this event. I guess it's not easy anymore, but he's clearly a better 400 runner than he is 400 hurdler. And now we have the deepest race in history through 5 guys. First time ever with 4 under 44 in the same race. First time ever with 5 under 44 in the same race. It was the hardest podium to make in history. Best all-time marks for place for 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th.
It was just unreal. And, Stan the man says, Hall looked like he was hurting the whole race. Couldn't believe he pulled that out. Really dug deep. He looks like he's digging deep. Centrowitz is still digging deep when he wins the Olympic gold, but it doesn't look like it. This is just visually so much more impressive. John did say it correctly. 300 meters to go. I'm like, we're on the turn. You're trying to figure out who's got the lead. And I said to John, I said, what's up with Quincy Hall? Because he was so far back. And John instantly was like, he's got a great close. But I thought maybe close to a medal. And then he just gunned him down. It was insane. And yeah, Matthew Hudson-Smith, he had some. I looked like he was crying with his dad or whoever it was over there. But I don't blame him. Like, this is what I was debating last night. If, let's say, Ingebrigtsen breaks the world record and still loses, are you upset? Like, Matthew Hudson-Smith should be proud of himself. And it's just Quincy Hall is cold-blooded. Cole Hocker was cold-blooded. And I'm not sure Year Goose is cold-blooded in the same sense. Weldon has a winner mindset. Nobody don't believe in the winner mindset. But that Quincy Hall dude, man, nobody was stopping him. Well, and the weird thing is that I would say the same thing about Kenneth Rooks. Nobody was stopping Kenneth Rooks tonight except for El Bakkali, who's basically unstoppable.
This is the crazy thing, though, is last night we had a Brit running one of the fastest times ever, 3:27 in the 1500, and gets gunned down at the line by an American running even faster, Cole Hocker. Flash forward 24 hours later, we've got another Brit, Matthew Hudson-Smith, running one of the fastest times ever, gunned down at the line by an American, Quincy Wilson. So if you're longtime listeners to the show, you know my heritage. Half my family is English, the other half's American. And the English half of my family is not too pleased with these results right now. I'm just getting messages from my uncle and my dad saying, like, oh my God, it happened again. Like, I can't believe this. The Brits just have to be furious at the Americans sniping down their gold medals at the end. But it has just been a fantastic meet, we were saying, for American distance runners, but American track athletes in general. Noah Lyles won the 100, and that was a comeback as well. He got it right on the line from Thompson. It's just been bonkers. If particularly the men for the U.S. track and field team, but I guess we did have Gabby Thomas win. We have Valerie Ullman win on the women's side. It's been very successful overall and fun to cover. It's nice. It's cool to see first-time champions like Quincy Hall and Cole Hocker. It's just, I don't know. It's been a really fun meet to cover.
It's been amazing. By the way, I'm going to write an article. I'm not quite. It is. Let's remind our viewers at home. It's 2 a.m. here. With my new technology here. I've downloaded all the British newspapers, like the headlines, like front page of the sports page. Crash for Hocker. I think the best one was Hocker Shocker. No, it was
it was Hocker Shocker. But it's funny because
they had Kerplunk with Hocker going like that. I'm going to write this article, and no, Shocker, Kerr, Hocker. Unreal. It was just unreal.
But all the because we talked to the Brits, and they love their Olympics, they love their athletics when the team's doing well, and it doesn't. The British gold medals, they'll resonate more over there than an American will in the U.S. because outside of maybe Lyles, because he won the 100, but most America's so used to winning gold medals in almost every event that it's like, oh, they got another gold medalist. In Britain, it's not as, they're more few and far between. Obviously, they do win their share, but it's a bigger deal when they do win one. And so they were all hyped about Kerr, and they were all hyped about, tonight, Matthew Hudson-Smith, he could do it. And I was talking to Sean Ingle from The Guardian, and, they had all the stats ready because the last British gold medal in this event at the Olympics was 1924, Eric Liddell of Chariots of Fire fame, and it was in Paris. So it was just too perfect for this to be the night, this to be the city where that drought comes to an end. And instead, it's an American just ripping it out of Matthew Hudson-Smith's hands at the finish line. So, but that's why we love this sport, because freaking anything can happen. And you know what? The Brits, they got their gold medal with Keeley. I'm sure they'll want another one. But yeah, a couple silvers with the performances Kerr and Hudson-Smith put on. They have nothing to be ashamed of. Those were two outstanding runs. They ran their absolute best on the biggest stage, and they just got beat by athletes who were a little better on the night.
That's my segue. Let's talk a little bit more about this 1500 from last night. We've only anticipated this race for a year at least. And I talked to 2 of my Supporters Club members. By the way, if you're just joining us now, this is the Let'sRun.com live version of our Track Talk podcast. That's normally once a week on Tuesdays. I think I may move it up to Mondays if I can soon. And then we have bonus podcasts every Friday for our Supporters Club members. Join today, Let'sRun.com/subscribe. In Paris, we're doing it every night. Thanks to Feldspar. They are the track of the future. There's super shoes. We're going to have a super track. Go to feldsparsport.com. Feldsparsport.com. And anyways, two of my favorite Supporters Club members happen to be friends of mine. Well, actually, we have a new Supporters Club member for life. Weldon, I think, no, actually, it's not for life. It's only for 4 years. Since Mike Scannell, Grant Fisher's coach, showed up at the Supporters Club meetup last night, Weldon has given him a Supporters Club membership that ends the day after the 2028 Olympics. We'll reevaluate Mike after Grant's run there. So, and we actually may revoke it if he's still not coaching Grant by 2028. But Mike, you're good for 4 years. But they both were texting me today about the race. And I wrote an article last night basically entitled, like, Jakob didn't run a bad race. He just got beat by two guys that ran amazing, or three guys that ran amazing races.
Are we going to leave the Michael Norman issue alone? Because a lot of our viewers saying the guy got DFL, he should be yanked from relay duty immediately. I mean, to me, do you want to say anything on that before we move to this topic? Or
well, I don't. To me, it wouldn't be that hard to figure out relay duty. First of all, so he still ran 45.7.
You can't put him on the relay after that. I'm sorry. Maybe the prelims, but I'm not even sure. Quincy Wilson in the prelims, man. Unless he's injured.
Well, I'm putting Wilson in the prelims. I'm not yanking. So 45.7 is not terrible.
What? 45.7 in an Olympic final? It's not good.
Well, he made the Olympic final, though. So he's one of the 8 best runners in the world. So he should probably be on the relay final.
You bombed the Olympic final. I'm not sure if I trust you in the relay.
But so if you don't trust him, then you run him on the prelim. Make sure if he's injured, if there's any hint of injury, you definitely don't run. But if there's no injury problem, just put him in the relay, and then I'm taking the fastest guys. I'm like, okay. I'm not going to like not look at the stats. I'm going to go with the stats. But anyways, back to this 1500. And okay, John, I will need you to look up the splits last night.
I got the splits. What splits do you need?
For Mr. Jakob Ingebrigtsen.
Okay.
Because I said, like, look, Jakob did not run a bad race. He only ran without the half of a rabbit. He only ran 1.5 seconds slower than what he did in Monaco. That was his personal best. And physics doesn't lie. He should run at least 1.5 seconds slower when he doesn't have a rabbit. So he ran basically, I would say, a better performance than he did in London, despite going out a little bit too fast. I think if he had gone out a little bit slower instead of 54.9 the first lap, maybe he runs a little bit faster, but not too much. And he also ran faster than he did in Tokyo when he won Olympic gold, and he had the help of a rabbit. Timothy Chariot rabbited most of that race. So I think he ran well. And Ross McGowan, Supporters Club member.
I mean,
he sent me a text. He's like, look, he ran almost identical race to what Timothy Chariot ran in 2019 at the Doha Worlds. And Timothy Chariot won the 2000 Worlds by 2.12 seconds. We haven't seen nomination like this in my lifetime, I don't think, or in my professional lifetime.
He ran almost a second faster than Chariot in this race. This was the fastest race ever by a guy who led almost all the whole thing and had no pacing help. Jakob ran 3:28.2 from the front, from the gun, without any pacing. No one in the history of running has ever done that. People have run faster, but they've had other athletes or they've had paces to draft off of. Obviously, Jakob did not win the race, but what he did in the final is essentially unprecedented. But the problem was, to win the race, he would have had to run 3:27 low, 3:26 high from the front, and that's 2 seconds, 3 seconds faster than the previous fastest wire-to-wire solo run, which was Chariot in Doha. So it's really, really hard to do.
It is. But here are the splits from Timothy Chariot in Doha. 55.01. What was Ingebrigtsen last night? 54.9.
54.82, yeah.
151.74.
151.5.
248.2.
247.3.
And then finishing time was 329.2.
328.24.
So there you have it.
Yeah, the difference was, I mean, people probably should have expected Chariot to do that because he did run all his stuff from the front of the circuit, but I don't think there was the collective belief or ability from the rest of the world to be able to run those sort of times and go with him. This time around, we've got a bunch of guys who know, hey, I've seen others go with Jakob and survive in these championship finals, and I know I'm in shape to do it, and I'm not taking it, I'm going for it. I'm going to take my chances, and if I blow up, I blow up. and a bunch of them didn't blow up, held on. Really, the only guys who did blow up in that race were Brian Coleman, right? He tried to hang earlier. Him and Chariot, the two Kenyans, it didn't go well for them. All the other guys, the ones who went with him, hung on pretty well.
By the way, someone in the chat is worried about Weldon. They want to know if he's hungover. No, Weldon went home. He's got 2 young daughters. He's having parental. I called him like right before we went on the show. I'm like, "Gonna be on?" He's like, "Nope." I can hear the kids like, "Daddy, I want food, Daddy." So he's not here. But if he does join us tomorrow, thanks to Feldspar, this amazing technology, I can put him up on this video board. He can talk to us, John. It'll be amazing. It'll be so exciting if he does get on. Hopefully the audio will show up. Apparently before we were live today, the hot mic was on. So thank God I didn't say something. The odds of me not being fired from my own company were pretty high.
Yeah, Robert does have a tendency to say he doesn't have that much of a filter at these big things. Oh, the other thing, we're talking about US Relay. Do you think Quincy Hall did enough to make the team? I know Noah Lyles didn't have him on the US 4x4, but I think he'd probably be helpful on that team if they can find a leg for him.
If you don't know what John's talking about, Noah Lyles appeared on a podcast saying he should run the 4x4, and then they're like, okay, here's your team. And he did not have Quincy Hall on it. Quincy Hall is now the fastest 400-meter runner on planet Earth. And speaking of Noah Lyles, my good buddy Chris Lear, author of Running with the Buffaloes, and it's a 4 book by Alan Webb, and there's going to be a new book that he's helped a little bit about with Sean Brosnan, Redefining Fast, I think it's called. He's always been upset. His dad's a huge Seton Hall fan. He's like, why doesn't anyone talk about Noah Lyles' father? It's absurd that his dad's never talked about it. His dad, I think, has a gold medal, certainly a medal from the Worlds in the 4x4. Was a world-class 400 runner, and no one ever talks about it. But yeah, Noah should not be on the 4x4 here because he ran relay duty at indoors. It wasn't a great leg, and if he wants to do it, he needs to run it faster to show that he can do it. But the other thing that we were talking about Chris Lear was he texted me today. He's like, I haven't read your articles in the airport. He left today like Weldon. There's a lot of people just came to Paris for the 1500 and they're heading home. And he said, I haven't read your article, but I disagree. Jakob ran a bad tactical race. The point of my article was I assumed it was 100% that he was going to front run it. And what I'm saying is the way he front ran it with a little flat, super fat, with a little bit, the first 400 being a little bit too fast, that's not what cost him. He's like, oh, my first 400 was 2 seconds, at least 2 seconds too fast. I don't think 56.9 would have been too bad. I would have gotten like 56.5 ideally. But Chris is like, well, he should have never thought he could front run it, and gave me a bunch of examples of why. So I do think moving forward, it's stupid for him to think he could front run it. Do I think he could ever if he's in this current fitness, do I think Jakob could ever front run it and win gold? Yes, I do. If he gets enough chances, it's like Grant Fisher. If he gets enough chances in the 5 or the 10, he'll eventually medal. If Jakob had enough chances in the 1500, there would be years maybe when there's not 3 guys ready to run 327 behind a rabbit. I mean, up until this week, there was only one person on the earth that was able to do that. So he might be able to do it, but I think it would be stupid to do it. So moving forward, what do we think he should do? I think he should. Yair Nagusa's coach told you, Dathan Ritzenheim. Yair was willing to lead it. Do the prisoner's dilemma. Sit in the back, let Yair lead for 400 or 600, then try to squeeze it down. Or just take the lead, slow it down. This is what Leo Manzano and what was the other guy's name? Jake
Morse.
Is it Jake Morse? Last name Morse for Texas. I'm kind of friendly with Jason Vigilani. Chris Lear's known Jason Vigilani, the Princeton coach, since high school. Jason was at Texas, and he told Leo was, eventual Olympic medalist, stud, the favorite, NCAAs. Leo, you're obviously going to win this race. Just go to the front. And he told Jake, get right on his ass, sit on the rail. You're not doing anything. You're not going to waste any energy. Kenneth Rooks is not wasting energy while these Ethiopians are blowing it out. You're going to save energy right behind Leo. You're not going to do anything. All of Leo's main competitors are going to be on the outside, breaking out, shoving each other, running extra distance. Indoor track, you're running a lot of extra distance. And then you're going to kick Jake, and they went 1-2. Leo winning wasn't a surprise. Jake getting second was a huge surprise. So there's shit like that. I wish honestly I had texted Jason or called Jason before this 1500 final. I should do it when I get home. Like, if you're coaching Jakob, what do you tell him to do? And I think trying to lead it again is insane, absolutely insane. And John talked to Mark Coogan to Dathan Ritzenheim. Weldon talked to Dathan Ritzenheim last night. What do you tell him to do? Dathan's like, I'm telling him to move up to the 5. I don't want him moving up to the 5. I want him to keep beating his head against the door in the 1500. Try to get another win here. It would be amazing. And there's only been 2 humans that have won 2 1500-meter golds, right? Stepco.
2 humans. There's been 1.
I mean, there's only been 1.
Stepco's the only guy.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it means Jakob will never win, but the 1500, the amount of talent in that event right now, it's ridiculous. We're not seeing anyone. No one's repeating at the moment. We've had 4 championships in the last 4 years. And we've had 4 different winners. So Cole Hocker, people see his kick and it's like, oh my God, how do you stop that? How do you beat him? And he just won the Olympics in a 327 race. I don't know. There's a lot of good guys. Someone else might come up and win next year. Maybe it's Nagoose. So I think you look at Jakob. I'm not convinced any strategy would have won in the gold. Tactics can only take you so far. At some point in the 1500, you're going to have to kick, and Jakob does not have the kick of Jakob does not have the kick of Hocker. I don't think he quite has the kick of Herb. It's closer. But the other thing is, like, people saying, oh, you should go to the lead at 400 and then push from there, or go from 800 and wind it down, or go from, what you were saying, like, get to the front and slow it down, or something like that. All those things, maybe they could work, but I think if you go back and look at what we were thinking about on paper ahead of the race, going to the front and trying to run 327 and make it a 327 race, I do think that was probably his best strategy to win, because I didn't think you would have, certainly not 3 people, and maybe not even 1 who'd be able to run 327 in the final. I thought Kerr probably could do it, but I think that was his best bet. Did he miss up the splits a little bit? Yes, probably, but and that caused him to run out of gas. But I don't think even if he got the splits perfect, I just don't think he was dropping those guys.
No. Now, there's been a lot of talk in these English papers, like Kerr and Ingebrigtsen were obsessed with each other. That's why Hocker won. Hocker ran 327 mid despite running into the back of somebody with 100 meters to go. He might have run 326. He certainly would have run 327 low. That's why he won. Now, I asked John, I said, what do you think about that? John, you made a good point. You're like, well, maybe if he wasn't obsessed with Jakob, he might have waited. If I was coaching, I would say never pass anyone to the last 50 meters. So instead of like running Josh ran a little bit of extra distance on that last turn. He could have sat behind Jakob, and then then Hocker's going to have to sit behind him, and then maybe he has to run enough extra distance because they were only separated by, a tiny bit. By the way, Rojo's number 1 fan here on YouTube. Rojo's number 1 fan, you've had some interesting comments on the YouTube chat. I want to know, do I know you in person? Like, if you're my number 1 fan, like, are you friends with me, or are you just a random stranger?
What if it's your wife just posting a handle?
My wife thinks I talk too much, so that would be amazing. Honey, I love you. But so please post Rojo's number 1 fan if I know you in person, if I've ever met you. If not, I need to buy you a beer. You want to know if John's had any luck with Parisian women?
I was hoping you wouldn't put that up on the screen. We could just avoid that. I don't think people listen to these podcasts for any of that sort of thing. Have I had any luck? Robert,
we don't have time
to do anything. You go to the track.
Supporters Club members.
Eat lunch, you take a nap, and then you have to go back to the track and sleep, and then you get up and do it all again the next day.
We're not complaining. We know a lot of you would love to not have to pay $700 to come to the Olympics.
You don't have much free time in the Olympics. That's the point.
And anyway. We do. By the way, John, I did let John basically enjoy the meet upstairs while I was interviewing. I went back to my old ways. I was interviewing when Kurgat and these randos that no one else.
Well, Zambian record in the 400 tonight. You got the interview, man. You got the exclusive.
I didn't get that, but I was interviewing a lot of sprinters that I wouldn't normally interview and stuff like that. But
okay, that's gonna do it for tonight.
What about tomorrow? Let's preview tomorrow briefly.
All right, let's do that. So,
by the way, people are saying, Antonio, thank you. You're the only good live streams of distance running. Thank you, Antonio. We appreciate it. The only problem is it's best we would get huge viewer numbers if we did it right when the meet ended, like we do with the Diamond Leagues. But we kind of want to be students of our craft. What's the word? Craftsmen. And we want to get the interviews, get the inside scoop, talk to Ed Eyestone.
Well, that's part of the point of coming out to Paris. Yeah, you get to see all these races, but you also talk to the athletes and you learn some stuff. So,
and it does suck though to have to I went down there to interview the guys after the Steeple, and I was like, that steeple race was the greatest race I've ever watched. And like, what's his first name, John?
Anderson
Emerson
Emerald
was telling me, he's like, I didn't watch the race. Because a lot of times you're trying to get an interview, and I was watching it on TV. So I'm glad I watched that one in person. Antonio, nutrition. We do this for all the Diamond League meets. We normally go live within 5 minutes of Diamond League meet entering. If you don't catch it live, though, we often delete these from YouTube. So you got to join the supporters club. Go to letsrun.com/subscribe. You're getting an amazing shirt.
We need to talk about the 5K. This debacle.
We did 5,000, and then we'll preview tomorrow. So we get there this morning. The 5,000 is going off, and the first heat was.
Look, we don't need to talk about.
First of all, look, this was a disaster waiting to happen. I assume because they had a couple scratches and whatnot that they only had 2 heats. I think it was top 2 heats. It was the top 8 in each heat makes the final. I think they should have had 3 heats because the first heat had 20 runners and the second heat had 19. I think it would have been better to do top 3 heats and take the top 5 in every heat and do a 15-person final. But
yeah, just scratch some of the gulag rounds and you can make room for it on the schedule. I mean, Robert,
so
I looked it up though. They do this every year. It is about 2 heats of about 20 people, and that's how they do it. And we haven't had any catastrophes, but that is a lot of guys in a championship 5K, especially when you know it's not going to be that fast because there are now no time qualifiers. So you're going to get more people bunching up. I'm fine with the no time qualifiers, but for the safety of the athletes, you probably do need to reduce the fields. And we just had a series of calamities. The first guy to go down in the first heat was Mohamed. He fell with about 550 to go. Was it right before the last lap, or was it 2 laps to go?
No, I think around 500.
Yeah. So he goes down, and his, you're kind of thinking, oh, he'll probably get advanced. But then with 100 to go, all hell breaks loose. George Mills tries to move past Hugo High of France on the outside of lane 1, and High kind of gives him a shove, extends the forearm. That sends George Mills tumbling. He connects with, I think, Indika Mornayo of Spain. They both clatter to the ground. Lubalu gets caught up in it. He falls down. Mike Foppen can't avoid it. He goes down. 4 guys are wiped off in one fell swoop. They all end up getting advanced, which I think is probably the correct decision because especially, Mills, you can sort of argue, was he going for a gap that wasn't there? He was like convinced. He's like, no. You watch the video. I'm sure I was fine. I had enough room. And Hugo High he was pretty candid. He was like, I didn't see the video. Look, if I foul them, I'll sort of accept that and I'll apologize. He didn't exactly say like, oh, I'm 100% sure I'm scot-free here. But anyway, the guys who were wiped out by that certainly should have been advanced. And then you've also got, what are you asking me to do, Robert? Scoot up. Okay. So then you've got another incident in the second heat, Abdelhamid Noor with 100 to go. He's easily in qualifying position and he falls down, and it ends up that Jan Schrub of France, that kind of throws off his momentum because he's contacted, and he ends up not qualifying. And he files a protest. He's advanced. Stuart McSwain, who we said earlier was in 13th place in the first heat and was thrown off by that massive fall, but probably was not going to qualify anyway. He protests and he's advanced. Noor and Ahmed, they're not advanced. And the reasoning behind this, I asked.
So John's got the scoop here. But yeah, Stuart McSwain was definitely impacted big time, but he wasn't making it. And I said, John, what'd you do? I said, well, if he was a favorite, I would have advanced it, but I would not. And I know that's a different justice system, which people don't like. But so I said, John, we've got to find out with Noor. They let everybody in except for Ahmed and Noor. And I really thought Ahmed, I like Jerry Schumacher, his coach. I'm like, he's getting shed upon. I think Ahmed's going to medal in this thing because he almost beat Grant Fisher in the 10. He's not even a 10 guy. And now he's out. And John texted his agent, Dan Lilo, and here's what he said.
Yeah, Dan said, my understanding is that they determined he clipped an athlete in front of him. It was not hit from the side or behind, so that is not grounds for advancement.
But
I assume they made the same call on Abdelhamid Noor.
Fine. That's probably what happened with Abdelhamid Noor because it's hard to see what happens. If you've watched the videos, they were kind of at a far away angle, then they closed up, or the vice versa.
They changed the angles right when both of these falls.
So I'm sure the Olympic people have a feed. Now, you did see the Ethiopian runner, who, by the way, ran like trash and barely qualified. Yesini, or whatever his name is, because they don't have Kajelcha in there. He does look over his left shoulder, so I think he got hit from behind. I think it's probably they determined that Noor touched the Ethiopian in front of him and then went down. But the question I'm asking, I don't know the answer, but immediately, almost simultaneously, and maybe it's after and they have slow-mo. I'm not saying I'm not into conspiracy theories. The Ethiopian goes from being on the rail to out and finishing in lane 2. So if he doesn't have a step and a half and he moves from the rail in front of Noor and Noor runs into him from behind, you could argue that's not really a foul on Noor. The other guy cut him off. So I'm kind of shocked. You're letting 20 in. Just goddamn it. Just let them all in.
Robert wants the 24-person 5,000-meter final.
July 24th.
I mean, it is interesting that, though, the two guys, I mean, Ahmed of that whole group is probably the best shot at a medal of anyone who got advanced. And I would have Noor, I mean, Indika Moinayo is probably ahead of him, but and him and Labalu as well. Those two probably do have a better chance than Noor. But you know, Noor, I wouldn't say his medal chances are 0. He pushed Grant Fisher to the line at USA's, and Fisher's a bronze medalist. So it's a bummer not to see those athletes get an opportunity. And look, if you can technically say, oh, they clipped someone, it's their own fault. I mean, I think you're really being quite harsh. This is just sort of a random thing that happens in championship racing.
And it's like, do you just fall on purpose?
Well, no, I don't like to see that. But like, you know, it's harsh to say, oh, this was Mohamed's fault or this is Abdelhamid Noor's fault. It's their own fault. They're not in the final. I don't really agree with that. But I also don't think there was, you know, from what they've said, there wasn't an obvious foul or anything. It's just, it's a bummer that you don't want to see any falls. And it seems like we've had enough for like 10 years.
Correct.
This season.
But let's talk about, to me, this is just setting up for Grant Fisher. And then, so I told Mike Scannell last night at the Supporters Club meetup, I said, I'm really glad he medaled in 10, because if he medals in the 5, it's an asterisk next to me. There's no Kaplimo. There's no Cheptegei. Now there's no Ahmed. I talked to Ronald Kwamoy. This was inside scoop. No one else bothers to ask him these questions. I said, dude, this is the guy that Renata Canova in 2016 told Andy Arnold, my former Cornell runner, in a Let's Run article, who do you got? And he said, 2020, 5,000, 100% chance that Ronald Kwamoy will win it. Why did he think that? Because this was a 328 guy at age 18 or 19. He's basically going to be the Ingebrigtsen of the 5,000, right?
This is another one of Rojo's go-to stories. Just like Ben Thomas, best middle distance coach in the NCAA. Ronald Kwamoy, 2020 Olympic champion in the 5K. But it's a go-to Rojo.
He was a huge talent, but now he's a guy that's never broken 13 for 5,000. He's never broken 27. He was 10th at the Kenyan Trials in 10,000. But he gets it together. He wins the Kenyan Trials in the 5,000. And he hasn't raced since then. So I'm like, what should we be expecting from him? He said, well, why haven't you raced? He said, well, I haven't raced because I had a hamstring issue, but I'm okay. Now, when a Kenyan says okay, there's kind of like, I think an American might say okay, meaning mediocre. He said it somewhat optimistically. And I had another quote where he had another word that kind of made me think he's doing well. But it's like, if you're missing time, are you really going to be rocking it? I guess a number of Americans, Ziggy Kova at the Wild Duck, could have been rocking it here. So,
update on our Wild Duck theory. So I was texting with Chris Lotzman, friend of Let's Run, who we were at the Wild Duck on the last night when we saw Cole Hocker, Yared Naguse. Actually, I think I saw them in the 1500, but I did see Cole Hocker after the 5K. And I saw Cole Hocker and Grant Fisher, and they both medaled this thing. So we're saying, well, we all wrong about this medaling thing? Like, maybe you need to have gone to the Wild Duck to medal. This is the new rule. Well, not necessarily, because Kenneth Rooks, he was not at the Wild Duck in the Olympic trials, and he's an Olympic medalist now. So turns out maybe the whole thing's overblown. You can go there and you can win a medal, or you can go elsewhere and you can still win a medal. But one guy who didn't medal will not have a chance to medal, Luis Grijalva.
God,
I don't know what happened to this guy.
Wait. This is the people, though, because people forget this stuff. People are like, oh, Jerry can't coach anymore. Mike Smith can't coach anymore. Like, imagine if this was your only athlete. This is the problem with coaching. If you only coach like one good athlete, when they do bad, he'd be like, you're a terrible coach. but you have tons of them. People forget about it. This is Luis Grijalva. He's been fourth at the last 2 world championships, and he finishes
16th
in his heat. Not overall. 16th in his heat.
Grijalva was hurt at the start of this year, and it took him a little while to get back in the swing of things, but he ran a PB, 12:50 in Oslo, and I'm just wondering if there was any sort of injury development or what happened in the interim. I don't know. He didn't want to do an interview in the mixed zone, so couldn't tell you what happened. Couldn't get Noor or Ahmed's perspective on their falls because they didn't want to talk about it either. So, yeah, I don't know. My one theory would be what you were suggesting earlier, though, is maybe that lost time in the winter came back to bite him, lack of aerobic work, but I couldn't tell you exactly what went wrong. All I know is it was a disaster for him today.
It was. People are loving the live studio. I'm so pleased. John's the old man. I'm young at heart. But
sometimes too young.
Oh, that's immature. I'm going to be fired by. If John's ever fired by Let's Run, there'll be a lawsuit. Let's put it that way. Yeah, it's what a night, John. What a night. So tomorrow, we got to get everybody ready for tomorrow. We're debating, do we need to go? Let's Run viewers, do we have to get up? It would really help us considering it's 2:30 in the morning. We've got to recap to finish. We will not be in bed before 4. Can we skip the men's drop and charge 800-meter round tomorrow?
We can skip that. The question is, do we want to be there for the men's and women's 100 4x1 prelims? If there's a disaster,
do we want to be there when the U.S. inevitably gets disqualified from the 4x1? Somebody else will interview them, John. It's not like that's not a major story.
Well, I feel like in Tokyo there weren't that many. The men did not advance to the final. I don't think there were that many people down there. But also,
and given our relationship with Christian Coleman and his father, I don't think it's likely they're going to give us an exclusive. So we may skip the morning round tomorrow, but tomorrow night we have the women's 1,500-meter semis, which should be good. You know, Kipyegon, obviously the favorite. How does Jess Hull look? Sige, I don't trust her. How does this Ethiopian girl today that went out in 58 and 202 look?
Could America get a medal in this event?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the semis, though. We got women's long jump final and men's javelin throw final in the field. Heptathlon day 1 concluding, and then this is great. Men's 200, women's 400 hurdles, men's 110 hurdles. Those are 3 of America's biggest track stars. Noah Lyles, obviously, in the 200, but the favorite. But if you're looking for signs, like maybe being concerned, today the semifinals, he didn't win his heat. They didn't talk to the media because he had to go to medical, so he didn't even come through the mix zone, which is quite rare. Most athletes, even if they're a little banged up, they will at least walk through the mix zone. So, Robert, how concerned are you? I know he's already won the Olympics in the 100, so we can't play a little game about, he'll never win an Olympic gold medal. But how concerned are you about this 200, Noah Lyles and his chances?
God, if we were only 6 1,000ths of a second slower, the prediction that Michael Johnson, that was crazy. After Noah Lyles, in case you're new to the show, missed winning gold in 2021, I'm like, look, I don't think this is crazy. This was his shot. He should have won. He would have won in 2020. 2021, he seemed to be on the decline. I didn't realize he was on antidepressants and this just running like crap until right a couple of weeks after Worlds. He did okay when there was fans in Eugene. But if you're an Noah Lyles fan, I'd be very worried about the final. Like, normally he's cruising in the 200. The 200 is so easy for him, John. And we talked about it last night. Gabby Thomas won by like a quarter of a second. That's actually the closest winning 200 in like 7-9 years, something like that. Like, it's normally blowouts. Noah Lyles is normally not having any trouble in the 200. There's only a couple of people that can come close to him. To see him lose a trials race, and what was the time in this today?
None of the 200s were very fast today, but his time, I'm pulling it up now, was 20.08. He lost to Bogo, who ran 19.96. And this was Lyles' first loss of any kind since the 2021 Tokyo Olympic final. So, if you remember that, he was only third in his semi there. So this, you wouldn't call this a loss. It was a prelim. He still advanced automatically, but he did not cross the finish line.
He got in on time in Tokyo and then medaled?
Yeah.
So look, that's Noah. He's clutch. The guy thrives on pressure. So I was thinking maybe because it's a lot in the 100. Remember, there was a rumor earlier in the Olympics that he was going to get out of the Olympic Village because it was too much. There was all the people, asking for selfies and stuff. And he wins gold, so I figure he just loves the fame. But when he gets beat, which is unusual, because these other guys they're not running sick, crazy times where it's like Matthew Hudson-Smith. Like you could see that special 400 coming tonight, John, because the semis were so good. We haven't seen that in the 200. They're kind of running mediocre times. But then I hear, Noah's not coming through. This is a guy that loves to talk to the media, and he's going to medical. That would make me if he had not won the 100, I'd say there's probably, oh God, I'd bet that he doesn't win the 200.
Well,
I think
I'm not going too crazy here because I think we overreacted to Yari Nagus in the first round. No, remember Noah didn't win his first round heat in the 100, and he still won the race. So I'm not going to read that much into it. There's also a conspiracy theory among some of the journalists. You know who was racing about half an hour after Noah's heat?
His girlfriend,
Janelle Brumfield, in the 400. So some were speculating that. Given he survived a subpar 100 to win, some subpar 100 prelim to win the final, I think he'll be okay. But I don't like the sound of medical right before an Olympic final. That's not really what you want to hear. So we'll see tomorrow night how serious those injuries concerns should be.
Wait, Roger's number one fan. Do I know you in real life? Have I ever met you? Yes or no? There were some other things today. Dark Link saying Andre DeGrasse, defending Olympics 200 champion, he's out. I had an interview with Wade Van Niekerk, the 400 meter world record holder. I said, dude, like he was in the 200, he's out. I said, what's it like? You used to be like the man. And I think a lot of people, this is actually a very interesting thing. They think that they're really good at running or they're really good at basketball, or whatever, because their mindset. And I think Wade Van Niekerk is a perfect example. That's not true. Like we give champions the mindset. No, they're just better physically. He hurt his goddamn knee and he's not nearly as good. Same thing with Johan Blake. Johan Blake was so good at one point in sprinting that Usain Bolt was literally trembling in the blocks and false starting because he thought he was going to get beat. Usain Bolt, the GOAT. So they get hurt. They're not the same. Wade's like, it's been extremely hard on me. And they're like, well, what about the 4x4? He's like, I would love to run the 4x4, unlike Americans' top stars who don't necessarily want to run the 4x4. I would love to run the 4x4 for our country, but basically implying, like, I don't know if I'm good enough. Like, he ran it at the World Relays. He would like to do it, but he says it's hard. And I said, do you think you can ever get back? He said, well, I'm not giving up. So that was fun. People want to know where we sleep. So we have a kind of a cool, it's a very European type loft, no air conditioning. We're environmentally friendly, unlike the American track and field athletes who have put air conditioning units. So you have to go up like above us to sleep, basically. And there's no guardrails. Like if I was over the age of 50, I would definitely not want to live in this race. But since I'm 39 in this place, it's no problem going up there. But if I was like a 7-year-old, I'd be afraid I'd fall to my death. But I've been sleeping on the couch since Weldon has now left. This will be my first night in the bed. But yes, Antonio Nutrition. Oh God, this is my new favorite poster. Thank you for saying the mindset thing. The super physically and in part mentally low. The mental is super overrated. You have to be elite physically first, even be there, then the mental. Correct. I used to watch my brother run. I'm like, he can't even get top 5 in the Ivy League. He was always 5th. You can't get top 4. And then I'm like, if I ever could get healthy, I would just never. I would get on the guy behind him, in front of me, and never lose. You just hang on them, and then I'll kick them. And that's not the way it works. You can't force it. But if you're in shape, it's instinctive. Like we had a kid that was anemic for 3.5 years at Cornell. It was terrible. And then he got anemic and was like rocking school records. He looked like the most competitive runner ever, despite getting like last place the first 3 years. Anyways, anyone else? Anything else, John? What are we missing?
Well, we didn't talk about the men's 110 hurdles. Holloway's looked much better than everyone else through the rounds, but you do have Jamaicans. We got 3 Jamaicans, 3 Americans, and then 2 from the rest of the world in this final, which is going to be fun. And Parchment, who beat him in Tokyo, hasn't looked all that great. Needed a time qualifier, but he did get in. The Jamaican who looked the best tonight was Orlando Bennett, 13:09. He was the runner-up at the Jamaican trials. PR'd there with a 13:18. Now he's the 13:09 guy. Now Holloway went sub 13 in his semi. So he's still clearly the guy to beat. But that is going to be obviously a big
No,
opportunity
it's
for
huge.
Grant.
He could be the GOAT tomorrow. If he wins the world record, I think he's the GOAT. If he loses, it's a negative. I love Grant. He's been on the podcast at least once. He always, John and I, he's like, we see in the mix, and he's like, my homies, you've been there since day one for me. So even though he loves Christian Coleman, who does not like us, Grant is amazing. But today in the mix zone, he's focused. He just walked in. He said, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. And then I thought, hey, since we're buddy, he'll talk to me. So he goes around the maze. He comes back, and I try to get one response. I said, so when he finished, he put his finger number one up to his lips. I said, Grant, what does the number one to the lips mean? Basically, I showed him the signal. He's like, you know what that means. So I'm going to have to give my interpretation, John, since he says that I do know it. I'm assuming it was like silencing the doubters, like, shh. What else would that mean?
I mean, it's supposed to mean like be quiet or whatever, silencing doubters. But I think athletes use it even when the doubters don't exist. Like Grant Holloway is extremely popular, and everyone expects him to win every race he wins. Sorry, every race he starts. So I don't know how many doubters there are out there. Like Cole Hocker used this celebration in Eugene, his home track, where all his fans were, when he won the Olympic trials. So again, I think it just kind of looks cool. Like the Cole Hocker celebration when he won that race, the photo looks amazing. But the doubters are often, imagined. All right, the one other big final is the 400-meter hurdles final on the women's side. This is Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. This is Femke Bol. Anything, does Femke's 47.9, does that change your opinion at all on what could happen in this race? Because I will remind you that in 2022, when Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone ran her 50.68 world record at the World Championships, she split 47.9 on the 4x4 for the U.S. at that meet.
That's a good stat, John. Does it change anything? Not really. So 47.9 had a second to it. So 48.9. Do I think Sydney can run that? Yes. And I was talking to some journalists. It was interesting. I'm like, does Bobby not want him to run? It's like Bobby's athletes used to always double. I'm like, Sydney should triple 200, 400, 400 hurdles. I don't think this is close. To be honest, I would love to see Femke win, but I don't think it's going to be close. And, the 110 hurdles, I just still think it's 110 hurdles. I think Grant's on he's a 13. He's at this point running so well between 12.9 and 13 flat most of the time. Bad day, 13.05, maybe 13.10. These other people have been
right. No. His good days unbeatable. His bad days probably 13.05, like you said. But the rest of the field, their bad days probably 13.0 or 12. We saw 12. Sorry, their good days 13.0, or we saw the Americans. Roberts and Crittenden both went 12.9 at the trials. And that is better than Grant's bad day. So he's obviously beatable.
Grant's incredibly consistent. Crittenden, these guys raised their game, and Grant lost 3 races last year. So it's like 70-80% chance that he wins this race. It might be a little bit higher, but you got a Jamaican running a PR. It's not a sure thing. It makes me nervous. And I was telling NBC guys, I said, you guys should have a stat. He will be ahead at 60 meters. We know that. But can he hold on? But it makes me nervous to watch him. I was nervous 3 years ago. Like, all I can do is fail. All I can do is fail. Attack it, Grant. Don't be nervous. Kick ass. And then the other one was,
we talked about them all. 200, 400 hurdles, 110 hurdles.
About the 200. If Noah Lyles doesn't win, who's your winner? Someone on here is saying that Kenny's done. When I analyzed it for the sports gambler, I had 2 scenarios. I thought, I don't think anyone's good enough to – this is what I thought. I don't think anyone on planet Earth right now is good enough to beat Noah Lyles at his A game. If someone's going to beat Noah Lyles at his A game, I think it was going to be Tobogo or Arian Knighton, who are just teenage phenoms. Maybe they're the greatest sprinters we've ever seen. Whatever. That would be possible. But I said, I think the more likely scenario is Noah Lyles is injured off his game, pressing. He got injured trying to win the 100. And then, he runs, he doesn't run 19.5, 19.6. He runs 19.8 and loses. Then I think Bednarik's most likely to beat him. But people are saying Bednarik's done. Like, did he not look good tonight? Or?
You won a semi. I don't understand why that would mean he's done. He didn't run his best race in the 100, but he's always been a better 200 runner. So, yeah, I think Kenny's the best chance to beat him. But I liked what I saw from Tobogo. 1996. He beat Lyles head to head in that semi. So I think it's one of those two guys. If it's not Noah, but I'm still backing Noah.
All right, I'll tell the inside story at the end of the show since not that many people are listening.
God, we need to. We've been going for an hour and a half here.
I just went live on Instagram in the last 15 minutes. Instagram people, we love you. Twitter, X, whatever. Twitter and X are the same thing. Someone says, how come Coleman doesn't like you guys? Two reasons.
Oh, my God. We don't need to go into this.
I'll just say it. I don't need to hide. Coleman's dad was listening to the podcast or saw a clip of the podcast. And when he had 3 whereabouts failures, but got off on a technicality because one got backdated. I said, okay, after this, like, he's the fastest man on planet Earth. He needs to take a drug test. If I was him, I'd take a drug test every day for the rest of my life to prove to people that I'm clean. Otherwise, there's always going to be suspicion. And then he proceeded. So the dad didn't like that and said, I'm a responsible hack and blah, blah, blah. And then, I don't know, it's kind of ironic that dad said I was irresponsible and a hack and not a professional journalist, because I said basically the whole point of that point was Christian needs to be very professional and get people to trust him again. And then he proceeded to miss another drug test. So I think that was Rojo 1, Coleman family 0. And then the other reason why he doesn't like us, probably things that don't help, is another journalist flew to a global championships basically to try to get in buddy with Christian. And he tried to tell Christian that he thinks that Let's Run's racist because John wrote an article wondering if Shelby Houlihan was innocent, but we had not been wondering if Christian Coleman was innocent. We never said Christian Coleman tested positive. John's written a number of articles about black athletes that he thinks likely are innocent, like Jerry Lawson. So this racism card is just overused, and it's disgusting that someone would think that. So that's the backstory there. But there you have it. All right, folks. Thank you for your support, and thank you, Feldspar, for your support. They're building the track of the future. Feldsparsport.com. By the way, look, you're probably a runner. Get a shoe. BetterRunningshoes.com. BetterRunningshoes.com. We're having fun in Paris. I don't even know how to say good night. Bonjour is good day.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Bonne nuit. Bonsoir.